Warning, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Hello everybody and welcome to the Derek Ruby Show. I am your host of previously mentioned Mr. Ruby, and this is Halloween month. And what better way to celebrate that than with a review of Cult of Chucky. Before we get started on that, I would just like to apologize because I've been sick all week and my voice is a little off, but the show must go on. The movie starts off with one of the most interesting openings of the entire franchise. And I don't mean Andy Barclay sitting here with this woman, because the second she finds out he has so much baggage, she dumps him right on the spot. No, I'm talking about what happens right after. We see Andy all grown up, he's got a nice little cabin, a lot of guns, and he opens his safe and he pulls out Chucky's head. And he takes the gag off Chucky's mouth and he starts getting high, and then Chucky asks for a hit.
Want to play?
Of course, Andy doesn't take too kind to this, and so he tortures Chucky for a little bit, and we get the opening credits. I would have to say that, honestly, out of all the Child's Play and Chucky movies, this was one of the most interesting things that I've seen in the entire franchise. And I really wanted more of this. I was hoping to have a little bit more dialogue between them, but it was still a nice touch to kick this movie right off. One thing this movie offers for sure is continuity, and if any of you have seen any of my reviews before, you know that continuity to me is a big thing. Speaking of continuity, we open right up with Nika. She was one of the only survivors in the last movie. She has been convinced that she committed all the murders and that Chucky doesn't really exist. And now she's going to be transferred to a medium security mental facility. This is Carlos. I don't really have to spend a lot of time on him because his story got cut out of the plot for time. As Nika adjusts to her new surroundings, she meets a crazy schizophrenic lady who thinks she's dead, and she also meets a guy named Michael. And after talking to Michael about cigarettes and gum, they have fully clothed wheelchair sex. After all that's over, the patients meet with the doctor to discuss Nika and her situation. A lot of the other patients have concerns that Nika is a multiple murderer, and they would like her to explain why she did it. So she does with no problem. But Angela pops up and says,
Chucky told me.
Angela.
He called me on the phone. He said to tell you he's coming for you. Now that you can have visitors.
Nika, of course, laughs at this. It doesn't set the other patients at ease. And the doctor does the one thing that everybody seems to do in these movies. He brings out a Chucky doll because he thinks it will help with everybody's therapy. Gee, I can't see where this could possibly go wrong. Madeline, who apparently has killed her own child in real life, thinks Chucky is her baby. And this does not sit well with Claire. So Claire has to start stuff with Nika and Madeline over this issue. And after she insults Nika, Nika replies,
The only thing I could get my hands on are the barbiturates they give me every morning that I've been stockpiling for months, waiting for the right bitch to come along to poison.
So Claire gets upset and leaves. Then Nika finds out that Michael's name is not actually Michael, but Malcolm. They actually call him Multiple Malcolm because he suffers from multiple personality disorder. Now kids, this is why you should get to know a person before you have fully clothed wheelchair sex with them. Then Nika gets a visit from Tiffany and she informs her that her niece Alice is dead. Then she gives Nika a Chucky doll because that helped Alice with her therapy, so she thinks it will help Nika with hers. Of course, Nika can't deal with this, and the doctor takes the Chucky doll, and then we get a scene of the two Chucky dolls passing in the hallway. Dr. Foley puts Chucky in his office by himself, and surprise, surprise, it's that foul-mouthed little slasher that we all know and love. Chucky goes and gets a scalpel, and he has a nice little interaction with Angela.
Let me explain something to you. I am a vintage, mass-marketed children's toy from the 80s. Standing right in front of you, holding a very sharp scalpel.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
I'm a schizophrenic. I see things.
Aren't you the crazy bitch I talked to last night on the phone?
Sometimes I hear things too.
Okay, lady. You know what? You're next.
So he goes to Nika's room and he finds that she's tried to commit suicide. But Chucky's not having that. So Nika wakes up the next morning with her arm stitched. Angela has apparently committed suicide. And there's a nice little message on the ground in blood. Then we switch back over to Andy, who is watching a video of him trying to convince Dr. Foley that Chucky's head is real, and he throws him out. But I'm wondering, how the hell did he get a videotape of this? Then Chucky says,
"You know what, Andy? What if you really are crazy? Have you ever thought of that? Maybe you belong in the booby hatch with Nika. Maybe this really is just all in your head."
Now everybody's freaked out about the death of Angela. Malcolm says it's simple. Chucky did it. Dr. Foley says that's ridiculous. Chucky's not real. So Nika challenges him to prove it. Dr. Foley takes her up on the challenge and he pulls out a lighter and he burns Chucky's fingers. Nothing happens and Nika wants the doctor to do it to Madeline's doll. Madeline takes off and Nika and Malcolm go after her. Madeline goes outside and Nika distracts the nurse so Malcolm could go after her. Meanwhile, Claire takes the other Chucky doll and she goes to throw it away, but it bites her on the arm. Dr. Foley and Carlos come up on her and they think that she bit herself, so they take her away. Nika's watching Madeline out the window, and then Chucky flips her off. Madeline throws Chucky in the grave, and then she pushes Malcolm in afterwards. In the meantime, Dr. Foley and Carlos drug up Claire for electroshock therapy, and the nurse comes and gets them and says she needs help with Malcolm, so they leave Claire all alone. They get Chucky and Malcolm out of the grave, but the look on Malcolm's face makes you wonder, is he possessed by Chucky? Then we switch back over to Claire, who can't move, and Chucky walks over to her with a bottle of compressed air. And then we get our first real badass kill of the movie.
Sometimes I scare myself.
Then Andy reads a news story about all this and he doesn't understand what's going on. But he goes and grabs another Chucky doll and he takes off. So Nika meets with Dr. Foley and they have a meeting to discuss what happened. And she lets Dr. Foley know this.
I think both dolls are alive somehow.
Fade beaucoup Dembella.
But Dr. Foley says it's no crazier than thinking what doll was killing people, and he wants to hypnotize her. And when he does hypnotize her, we find out that not only has he been brainwashing her, but he's been messing around with her as well. Then, this happens.
Holy shit! And they call me sick? This guy is diabolical. I mean, what a piece of work. I'm actually a little envious.
Then Nika goes into a dream sequence with her niece and Chucky. And I'm telling you guys, some of the imagery in this dream sequence is pretty crazy. And it really just shows you the kind of tone that this movie has. Nika tries to get the doll from Madeline, and she runs into Dr. Foley. Madeline takes Chucky into her room, and then we get a scene with Andy having a phone conversation with Tiffany. Then we go back to Madeline, who smothers Chucky with a pillow. Dr. Foley, Nika, and Malcolm witness this. And Dr. Foley thinks it's a good idea to have a funeral for the doll. Nika watches through the window as they bury Chucky. Then Andy shows up and he wants to talk to Dr. Foley, but the security guard won't let him. So he punches the security guard so he can get committed. And this is kind of ridiculous because if you punch the security guard, they're not going to commit you to the mental asylum. They're going to call the police. But they commit Andy and they throw him in a padded cell. Nika waits for Chucky to come up out of the grave. And as he starts to, Chucky hits her with a needle and puts her out. Dr. Foley gets a package from Andy with the other Chucky doll that he brought with him. They must have damn good delivery service over there because this has to be within the same day or two that Andy left his house. He must have used UPS. Madeline's on suicide watch, but her baby boy Chucky has come back from the grave, and she volunteers for Chucky to kill her. Nika's in Dr. Foley's office with a straitjacket. He shows up and asks her how she got there. She tells him, "You know how I got here." He puts some red shoes on her feet and he tries to kiss her and she spits on him. And then Chucky bashes him over the head again.
I just can't with this guy. I don't know whether to kill him or just take notes.
He gives Nika the opportunity to kill him, but she refuses. Then the other Chucky comes into the room, and they bring the other Chucky doll to life as well. Then Chucky explains this to Nika.
A few years ago, I came across this groovy new spell on VoodooForDummies.com that changed everything. Now, I can be me, and me, and me. And theoretically, anyone or anything with 2 legs and a hand for stabbing. Like Alice. It was fun for a while. People trust cute little girls almost as much as cute little dolls. But little girls can get hurt when their victims try to fight back.
Unfortunately for Carlos, he comes in around this time, and then we get the coolest kill I've ever seen in a Chucky movie. So short-haired Chucky goes to kill Andy, one-armed Chucky's gonna guard the door, and regular Chucky's gonna take care of Nika. Then Tiffany kills the security guard. And if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I love Jennifer Tilly. Nika tells Chucky to go ahead and get killing her over with, but Chucky tells her there's a lot more things that are worse than death. And then Chucky does the thing that he's never been able to do in any of the other movies.
Ade beaucoup, Gambella. Give me all the power I beg of you!
He did it. He finally got a real body. And apparently, if you've never been able to walk your entire life, being possessed by somebody will make you stand right up. Dr. Foley wakes up at just the right time so Chucky can go ahead and stomp his face for Nika.
This is for Nika.
Then Chucky comes up on Malcolm, who just killed the nurse, and he tells him he's Charles. And they have a little bit of an argument about it. And Malcolm goes crazy. And then the other Chucky comes up behind him, and this happens.
I can hear him. I can still hear Chucky inside my head.
And it was such a nice place to visit.
This is an interesting dynamic in the movie because we don't know if Malcolm was actually possessed by Chucky or if he just thought he was. It's one of the psychological elements of the movie that really makes you think. Then short-haired Chucky shows up and has a battle with Andy Barclay. But Andy's able to get the better of him, and he pulls a gun out that he hid inside his stomach, and he shoots him numerous times. Then Nika Chucky shows up and says this.
You kill me, you kill her. Think about it. Yeah, thinking is for losers.
So yeah, after 30 years of build, Andy Barclay is a complete dumbass. It's very unbelievable that he would know that the short-haired Chucky would come for him and he would get the gun in the first place. But then he doesn't bring any extra bullets or any extra guns, he just uses it all on that one Chucky. And now he's left in an asylum where a whole bunch of people were killed and he's probably going to get blamed for it. Way to go, Andy. Fortunately, we live in the age where the good guy doesn't always win anymore. Chucky comes out of the asylum and he kisses Tiffany. And he says,
So this is different. I don't know. Works for me.
Works for me too. Then they get into the car and they talk about Alice a little bit and then they laugh and drive off. Then we get a bonus scene after the credits where Kyle from Child's Play 2 shows up to Andy's house to torture Chucky's head some more. And that is The Cult of Chucky. So what do I think about it? The movie is excellent. The cinematography and the atmosphere is great. The psychological elements, the guessing games you're wondering the whole time you're watching, it really does a lot to keep you interested. This is the first movie where we have 3 Chuckies killing one person. I've heard some people complain about this, but honestly, it only makes sense that this would be the natural evolution of the franchise. 7th movies in the series are usually not this good. The idea that Chucky finally was able to get a real body is amazing to me, and there was a lot of fan service in this movie. I take away a little bit because if you've never seen a Chucky movie, you might have some trouble catching on to what's happening. The pacing was good. The kills were good. This movie was so good I've already watched it 3 times. So it definitely gets my stamp of approval. So I'm going to give The Cult of Chucky 4 stars. So thank you guys for listening to the Derek Ruby Show, and I hope you're enjoying our Halloween month. You can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Facebook. And as always, have a good one. And I'll see you guys next time.
Welcome to the cult, pal.